This meeting is being recorded and/or transcribed.
Good morning. We're calling to order the Thursday, September 10th Municipal Accountability Review Board meeting. Welcome to everyone who's in attendance here today. Before we begin, I will just ask Julian to remind us of our virtual meeting procedures. Julian.
As I mentioned earlier, you mute or unmute yourself with *6, and we've had success with kind of leaving it open for folks to request recognition from the chair of the meeting when they have a question or a point and to make. So I think we'll continue with that format.
Excellent, very good. So we'll move on to our public comment period. If there's a member of the public that is attending this telephonic meeting, you do have an opportunity now to speak. Your comment should be limited to 2 minutes. If you are desiring to make a public comment, please recognize yourself at this time and state your name and town that you reside in. Okay, great. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the August 13th special meeting of the Municipal Accountability Review Board. Is there a motion for the approval of the August 13th minutes?
Sal Luciano, so moved.
Thank you, Sal. Is there a second, please?
Mark Waxenberg.
Great. The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Great. Seeing none, over to Julian to do a roll call. Julian, over to you for the roll call for the approval of the minutes, please.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mr. Waxenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Beller?
Yes.
Mr. Luciano?
Hope so. I made the motion to approve.
Mr. Brockman?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Secretary McCaw?
Aye.
Are there any board members who have joined since the original roll call who I didn't mention? Okay, that's everybody. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, so first up today is the City of Hartford. We will begin with a subcommittee update. You have in your package an update from the dated September 1st. The Hartford subcommittee met on June 25th and July 23rd and spent the majority of the time focused on the 5-year plan and the contingency framework, if you will, for closing projected budget gaps within the 5-year out-year projection. So with that, Julian, why don't you give us a summary of the subcommittee meetings and where we landed. We also did touch base upon the city's corrective action plan to remedy findings from the fiscal 2019 audit and an update on special education. This will segue very nicely into our next agenda item for Hartford, which will be the review, discussion, and possible action on the 5-year plan.
Right. The only thing I would add to the item on the 5-year plan is that the MARB made their approval of the city's FY21 budget when they took action in May. That approval was conditioned on the city receiving approval of the updated 5-year plan by the city council, which did take place in June, and then by the MARB. And so at the subcommittee level, there was a vote to recommend to the full MARB approval of the updated 5-year plan. And as the secretary mentioned, that's the next item on the agenda. And then we've been receiving routine updates on the city's corrective action plan related to prior year audit findings, continued development of the Board of Ed's portion of that plan, and working through a process for the Board of Education to develop a long-term strategy for special education services in the district, and possibly bringing some services in district. And that's an item that will continue into subsequent meetings as well. That's it for my summary.
Before we delve into greater details on the 5-year plan, do the members have any other questions concerning the corrective action plan progress, or where we stand with the special education matter? Okay, so seeing that there are no further questions, we will turn to the review, discussion, and possible action on the 5-year plan for fiscal 21 through 2025. As Julian indicated, our budget approval was contingent upon approval of a 5-year plan, and council has already taken action. In your package, you do have a detailed description of the 5-year plan and a summary from Julian. I will note a couple of things. We took our time to really validate and the measures that the city had put in front of the subcommittee with respect to how they would close potential budget gaps. And most of our discussion was really centered around those measures. The measures were a mixture of enhanced tax collection or revenue collection improvements, energy efficiency measures, potentially the need to reduce plans for capital spending, for example, capital reserves, reviewing service level adjustments, or other revenue diversification options. After extensive review and discussion of these efficiency and mitigation measures, the subcommittee did vote to recommend that the MARB approve the updated 5-year plan. So at this time, I'd actually like to ask the city if they'd like to provide some commentary on the 5-year plan, and specifically some of the mitigation measures that could be utilized in the event the deficits materialize. I believe we have Mayor Bronin and we have Bob Dakers from Hartford that are present to give us a quick overview.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary McCaw, and good morning to all of the members of the board. I think Secretary McCaw really gave the broad strokes already. As you know, the 5-year plan still projects deficits in the neighborhood of $4 to $5 million in the out years, and as we've discussed, that does not include potential salary impact from negotiated contracts as contracts come up for negotiation. So we recognize the need for continued focus on both mitigation and revenue diversification. The revenue diversification options that are identified in here are not surprising or new. They include local hotel tax, local option sales tax, or a portion of sales tax that's dedicated to local municipalities. I think it's worth noting that there is still, Secretary McCaw, you can correct this if this is mistaken, but there is still in state statute the municipal revenue sharing agreement formula, which I believe is scheduled to go into effect in the next fiscal year. Understanding that will likely be the subject of intense debate in the upcoming budget years, that's something that could potentially be a game changer from a revenue standpoint for the city of Hartford and many other communities. On the mitigation side, the efficiency side, obviously we continue to look at cost-saving opportunities on energy, benefits, but as Secretary McCaw said, I think likely the biggest opportunity would be a scaled-down capital investment plan, if necessary, if those deficits materialize.
Great, Mayor, you're spot on. municipal revenue sharing will be a source of discussion in the upcoming session. Was there more that you wanted to add or that Bob wanted to add to the mitigation of revenue measure?
Bob, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that, that covers it. I know we had a robust discussion at the committee or subcommittee level. Well, I think the mayor and the secretary have covered it well.
Great. Just a couple of other things that I would just point out on tax collection efforts. The city has been working on enhanced collection in the area of motor vehicles. They are working with a consultant to address non-registered or improperly registered vehicles within the city. They address in the summary you have in front of you enhanced personal property audits, consideration for potentially using alias tax warrants to leverage additional revenues. So we do have a pretty detailed description. Private duty jobs is an area that I believe Yolita reported we've made progress on collections in that area. So enhanced collection efforts seem to have been fruitful to the city. And then the other two from an operating perspective, one relates to the golf course enterprise operations, which seems to continue to be under review on how to stabilize golf course operations. I believe the city does have a subsidy in their general fund, and in the event they're able to have further improvements there, that would be a nice area to have trim the budget. And lastly, the enhanced workers' compensation reduction strategies. I believe in our subcommittee, I did raise to the city that this might be an item to raise in their collective bargaining discussions, as some prior reports have indicated that salary continuation policies also impact the timely return of healthy workers to the workforce. So I would just add to our discussion that we had those conversations as well. So with that, we will open it up for discussion from the MARB members.
This is Bob White. Two quick questions and a suggestion. The first, I note that the assumption here is that the reval will take place as scheduled in October 2021, effective fiscal year 23. I just wanted to verify that because I think you'd put a little asterisk there. The related question there is that I forget the rationale for increasing the projection for the grand list in 2023 from 2.5 to 3.5. If you could deal with that. The other one has to do with how long the corporate contribution to the library is slated to continue.
Sure. So the first question about the timing of the reval is one that we are still considering. I think at our subcommittee meeting, I suggested that we were likely to postpone it or to seek the ability to postpone it. I think our current thinking is that we are likely to proceed on schedule for a reval that fixes the grand list of October 2021, and as you said, takes effect in fiscal year 23. We have not made a final decision about that. We will probably make a final decision in the next week or so, but I think that we are leaning strongly towards sticking to the current schedule. I'm happy to discuss that if you'd like.
No, good. That's good. And the refresh my recollection, the increase from 2.5 to 3.
Yeah. So forgive me if I am misremembering. I don't believe there is an increase. I think it was always 2.5%.
Okay, I just saw maybe it's my aging eyes, but the summary that Julian prepared, top of the list. Top of the list was 2023 3.5. So that may be a typo.
No, 3.5. Please go ahead. Yep.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, so 3.5 it is correct, and this is due to a reval. That's how we
Understood.
get the assumption on that.
I think that
But I don't believe that that's a change. I think it has always been 3.5.
that is correct.
Okay. And the library?
So we are in year 3 right now. In fiscal 22 and fiscal 23, we will still have that contribution. In fiscal 24, we will not.
Okay, good. One quick suggestion while I've got the floor is first of all, I really have to congratulate you on the memo you did on the efficiencies. I think it's really a good roadmap that I'm keeping in my binder. I'm just wondering if at some point soon we could discuss the process for keeping on top of that. In particular, the role of MARB in doing what it can to advocate, if that's appropriate, for these positions. I think we've got some issues that, to some extent, OPM is affected, and, that's the big hat they wear, Madam Secretary, and then, we've got the MARB thing. So I don't know if there's a role for the MARB members that you have to filter, but I think that's worth a conversation because, the CapEx reduction is pretty significant as a gap closer. And I think to the extent we could do any of these things, most of which I think require some kind of state approval or change, we can. I would just like to keep that as a marker, Madam Secretary. You figure out how to the appropriate process, but.
No, I agree. I mean, as you will recall from our extensive subcommittee discussions, the subcommittee was not willing to have the 5-year plan be successfully voted out of the committee until we had a backup plan for some of those projected gaps, and it was critically important that we maintain consistency amongst all of our MARB municipalities. And so with that being said, we can use our subcommittee process to receive timely updates on the measures that the city's put forth for their additional mitigation, and I think that would be consistent with how we are working with West Haven and Sprague.
Thank you.
Very good. Bob, any further questions from you on the 5-year plan?
No, thank you very much.
Very good. Other MARB discussion pertaining to the city's 5-year plan?
It's Mark. The mayor mentioned contract negotiations are still ongoing. What are the contracts, or what are the contracts where we have expiration? And I assume we're beyond the expiration dates. And what's the prognosis for settlement? Because obviously you're on a timeline. You can waive certain timelines, but I don't want to say how are they going. I assume it's good faith, and where do you see the end result being? A negotiated settlement, hopefully mediated and or arbitrated, and obviously we would have to consider those that impacted the 5-year plan, etc. So it's somewhat important that those numbers be plugged in as soon as possible, but we certainly don't want to. I don't want to personally be aware of any strategies and or ongoing negotiations, but I was just wondering how they're going. And with what units?
Sure. So we have 2 contracts that expired as of July 1 of this year. That's Fire and Chapia. We are in active off the record discussions with Fire, and I certainly can't provide any projections I think they have been collaborative thus far, and I'm hopeful that they will yield a negotiated settlement. With Chapia, we have yet to begin. The others
Okay.
are, in a phase that they've come up for negotiation, over the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
Well, I know that things changed in negotiations, but I'm glad to hear that they're both parties are meeting in good faith, and hopefully it'll result in an agreement that MARB can approve and it can be incorporated successfully into the 5-year plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Other discussion on the 5-year plan or questions? Okay, very good. So just some final comments. As we all know, the rubber will meet the road as the city finalizes its the next reval for the grand list as of October 2021. Hartford has been very stable for several years, and I think it's important for us just on record to know that the ability to meet the grand list exemptions will be a critical factor in determining whether or not the plan...
Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
Good morning, Mr. Fosigno. Whether or not the plan will be successful, we've all known that from the original plans that we reviewed for Hartford. So as far as the eyes can see, this is a balanced plan. It's a responsible plan in terms of the mitigation measures that have been put forth in the event of some of the original deficits that were anticipated, and the items that the city has identified that could contribute to that mitigation will continue to be monitored and discussed in the subcommittee. So with that, I believe that we could have a motion with respect to the approval of the city's 5-year plan.
So moved, Bob White.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
This is Tom Hamilton. I'll second that.
Thank you, Tom. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Great. Seeing none, over to you, Julian, for a roll call.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Waxenberg, we'll come back to Mark. Mr. Biller?
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Biller?
Yes.
Mr. Luciano?
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno?
Yes, I previously read everything, so yes.
Mr. Brockman?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
And Secretary McCaw?
Yes.
Are there any board members I missed who have joined since the original roll call? Okay, that's everybody.
Okay, very good. So the motion passes. All right, so moving on to the updated monthly financial reports for Hartford. We have a report for fiscal year 2020, as well as a preliminary report for fiscal 2021, which gives us an update on tax collections of note for today's meeting. I will turn it over to the mayor or Bob to present the fiscal 20 report.
So I think I'll hit the highlight and then turn it over to Bob to go into some additional detail. As you'll see, and you forgive me, I'm having technical difficulties, so I don't have the documents in front of me, but Bob, you can jump in if I say anything wrong. The report that you see for FY20 shows a surplus of approximately $16.2 million, which obviously is great news. The two, as we've talked about in prior meetings, the two biggest drivers of that are payroll savings and attrition, and very significantly this year, favorability in healthcare expenses. Presumably because of the coronavirus, for the last third and certainly the last quarter of the year, the healthcare expenditures were far lower than projected as people delayed or forewent doctor's visits and procedures. We still don't know whether whether that will result in a spike in this current fiscal year, although I do not believe we have seen any such spike yet. But it did produce significant savings, obviously, probably one-time savings in FY20. Our current plan for that $16.2 million is the following. We have discussed in this forum before our plan to pre-fund the development of a civilian crisis response team that would respond to certain calls for service in place of or in conjunction with the police department, and we laid out a 4-year plan with $500,000 this year, $1 million the next, and then 1.5 and 2 that would allow us to build that up and scale that up. Our hope is that in addition to providing significant improvements in service, that may also save costs over the long run. So it was always our intent that that $5 million pre-funding would come from the FY20 surplus. Beyond that, is my intention to create an assigned fund balance of $5 million for economic uncertainty, just given all of the uncertainty that we face right now, to put that aside in a sense as extra contingency given the economic uncertainty we face. And then the remainder would likely fall to unassigned fund balance. Our unassigned fund balance currently stands at approximately $12 million, and so with that additional amount, our fund balance would sit at 17 or 18 million dollars, which is a significant improvement from where we were, and something that we've identified as a top strategic priority over the last 3 years is to rebuild that fund balance. So we're pleased to be able to make progress toward that goal. Bob, over to you for any additional detail in the reports.
Yeah, of course, these are still unaudited, so we're in the the audit phase, but we don't anticipate any major changes from this, but from what we're reporting here today. And so I think the mayor has described kind of some of the major areas of saving this year, and the payroll and benefits, and I think that describes where we're at, and I can take any questions you may have regarding the financial report.
I should add that in addition to attrition, the other areas where we had some meaningful favorability included the payouts line and the contingency line. That's correct, Bob, right?
That's correct. I'm sorry. Yes.
Very good. Mayor and Bob, can you just give us a little bit of an insight on the 10% lapse, if you will, in payroll? Is that still primarily in the area of police and DPW?
Yes, primarily in the area of police. We had worked to fill vacancies throughout the city, so there's some attrition savings throughout the city, but the largest driver of that is police, which will not be as large a driver or anywhere near as large a driver in the coming year.
And is that because we have classes that are underway?
That is both because we have classes underway and because we reduced the budgeted headcount.
Very good. Mayor, how about overtime? How are we doing on managing overtime expenses?
We did well in 2020. Bob, you want to speak in more detail?
Yeah, we did very well. Some of those same departments we were under this. In terms of this year, the first month, and we've been peaking at the second month too, it seems to remain stable and according to budget, and so we haven't seen any major increases. But overtime was strong last year. Combined with there were some vacancies, and so a lot of the payroll savings are a combination of salary savings and then overtime. Maybe the overtime was a little higher in some areas as that balance, but it obviously had savings in both those areas last year and this year. The first couple months seem to be running pretty stable as well, but we'll obviously know more as we go ahead. But we still continue to monitor that
on a monthly basis and keep watch over that.
Very, very good.
And we monitor internally on a weekly basis. And let me just add that on the police side, I think we probably would have had some significant favorability, significantly greater favorability in overtime. But we, as you can imagine, incurred some pretty high overtime costs in the months of June and July, as we had a combination of protests and fireworks and large gatherings that we had to monitor due to COVID.
Very good. And finally for me, Bob or Mayor, can you please provide the board with some clarity surrounding the $2.9 million use of fund balance for the Board of Education? And is there any update on the final outcome of fiscal year 20 for the Board of Education? Do we expect that they will close in deficit up to $2.9 million without, in the event they did not access the assigned fund balance?
Maybe you want me to take that one? Or
Yeah, why don't you take that, Bob?
As you know, Madam Secretary, that the City Council, Common Council, last August took the 19 surplus had committed for fiscal 20 $2.9 million for the Board of Ed to assist with their budget and operations. So during the year, the Board of Ed made a request for those funds, and they were transferred. The mechanism we used was it was transferred which was from the Health and Internal Service Fund. We are in discussion. We've been talking to the Board of Ed about their their results for 2020, and those are not finalized yet. We continue to work with them and try to finalize that and look at the issues. We're not looking that they will end with a deficit, or they'll have some perhaps a surplus of some size. So, but we're still determining, what that might be. But that is still a work. That is still that work is ongoing. And actually, we've been having pretty close discussions with Dave Fleeg and other members of the Board of Ed Finance team.
Great, thank you, Bob. So for the MARB members, understanding the financial report that is before us here today does assume that the Board of Education will need to utilize the $2.9 million in assigned fund balance, given that the outcome of fiscal year 20 has not yet been determined. We should review this matter next month, as it would impact the financials that the city has put in front of us in terms of the vehicle that they would use to ensure that the board actually is able to access the $2.9 million. So I just want to flag for the committee that that's an open item. It's only September, and we do not know yet how the Board of Ed will close. But if there is not a deficit, then I would recommend to the city that they seek council's a resolution from council approving access to that unassigned fund balance in fiscal year 2021 as opposed to fiscal year 2020. And last but not least, for council's knowledge, many municipalities are looking for some clarity from the state on how COVID-related expenses out of their general fund will impact the MBR. And obviously our state statute did not contemplate a COVID pandemic. However, municipalities that do incur one-time COVID expenses and they pay for it out of their general fund, by law their MBR would be increased in future years, which the administration does not feel is the intent. So we will be working with the legislature to try to obtain language to ensure that that does not happen. So flagging that for the committee as well and opening it up for further discussion.
Secretary, I have a question. Kim Kennison.
Go right ahead, Kim.
So in the year-end numbers, I'm assuming that COVID expenses are embedded in here, and at which some of them have already been earmarked for reimbursement from the state, and those items would then have an impact on the bottom line if they're included in here as expenses.
Thanks, Kim. Great question. They actually are not included in there.
Okay, thank you.
For which we are seeking reimbursement on a special revenue fund, and to the extent that the reimbursements we receive fall short, then we would have to fund that in some way, possibly out of one of these contingency accounts.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other discussion? Great. So, Bob,
it might be helpful if Bob, can you just give a sense of the scale of those of the COVID expenditures that are not included in here for which we're seeking reimbursement?
I think they're still being tallied, and maybe actually Leanne is on the phone as well, who's been suffering this. But I've seen for the FEMA-related ones, it was like was it $1.5 million, Leanne? But I don't know if you're still with us.
Yep, I'm Bob. Good morning, everyone. Leanne Rawls from the city. The total COVID expenditures that we're seeking reimbursement on through FEMA are approximately $2.3 million. The city also has applied for 2 other grant reimbursements, one through DPH and one through the Firefighters Assistance Grants. Both of those combined are approximately $200,000. And then whatever becomes ineligible through the FEMA reimbursement request, we will seek reimbursement through CARES. And then, as the mayor mentioned, anything that is ineligible through CARES, the city will fund through one of the contingencies.
Great. Any other questions on the impact of COVID on the city's projections? Okay, and with respect to the CARES Act funding, just for the purpose of MARB members in the city, the reimbursement time frame, technically we can do that all the way through December. OPM has set some deadlines for submittal of those requests, but we recognize FEMA's review and response to the municipalities has been slow, so we've been adjusting the time frames accordingly. Our goal is to make sure that your expenses are reimbursed up to the amount that you had provided to OPM in our survey. So we'll continue to work with you accordingly.
Thank you, Secretary.
Great. Other discussion on fiscal 20, we're going to move on to, if there is none, we will move on to a quick update on fiscal 21. Tax collection update would be very helpful. Any other questions on fiscal year 20? Okay, Bob, do you want to just quickly get the highlights on your initial observations on fiscal 21? That'll be Bob Dakers.
Bob, you might be muted.
Sorry. I'm sorry about that. As indicated, the expenditures have been stable. We're keeping a track of those, especially the overtime, and the mayor said, police will be one to watch. But as far as revenues, I think property taxes were strong in July. I think they were, according to this, were running ahead of where we did in July of 2020, and fiscal year in July of 19. Actually, I'm sorry, fiscal year 20. And so we were ahead of last year, and I think, and again, Leanne could comment better on this, but I think that through August also seemed to be running well also. So obviously that's one of our, that was an important factor that we've been monitoring closely. That's another one of those we were monitoring at the mayor's request and on a weekly basis. And so far, that's on the revenue side is good news that the property tax continue on strong, and on total revenues, we're ahead of where we were last year, and I think on the expenditures we're slightly below last year. Some of that could be timing issues, but again, expenditures are pretty stable, and revenues have been has been coming in well to date. And again, August it was looking strong as well.
Great. Discussion on fiscal 2021?
This is Tom Hamilton. Just a question on the payroll. Given the fact that you had some, turn back there last year, would you expect similar kind of turn back this year, or do you think that was really a one-off kind of situation last year?
Thanks, Tom. I think that it was not one-off last year because we have had attrition savings for a number of years. But as we talked about a little bit earlier, a lot of that was driven by police, where we had built into our budgets the number of police to which we aspired, even though we weren't there. And so that was a big driver of that attrition. So that will be lower this year, again, both because we're hiring and because that we brought that headcount down a little bit. I would suspect that there will still be some payroll and attrition savings simply because there's a lag between when vacancies open up and when we're able to fill them across the city.
Right. And remind me, I think you folks do budget for a full complement of personnel. In other words, you don't build in a attrition savings into the number. Is that correct?
No, we actually do build in attrition savings, but the attrition savings we build in are, and again, you let Bob jump in and correct this if I'm wrong, but the attrition savings we build in are based on the historical experience of how many employees in a given department leave in a given year. It's not based on where we have not yet hired to achieve our full staffing goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I understand.
So we do build in an attrition. We build in some, but we don't build in. We don't fully offset.
Right. Okay. Good.
Any other questions on fiscal 2021 update on financials?
Can I add one thing, Secretary McCaw?
Yes, Mayor. Right ahead.
I just, we have talked many times in this setting about cybersecurity, and I think you're all aware that we were the subject of a very sophisticated and aggressive ransomware attack. We believe that we avoided the worst outcome in that the attackers were not able to actually encrypt our systems and lock us out of them. But the process of restoring those systems and identifying whether there's any other longer-term risk or vulnerability is ongoing. So I suspect we will have some expenses there in the coming weeks and months. Legal, forensic, supplementary IT, and we'll keep the committee updated on that as we go.
Thank you, Mayor. And we, the city had recently purchased cybersecurity insurance. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have cybersecurity insurance with a $10 million coverage level, but in a number of the categories, there's a retention of $250,000, so there may still be a hit in some areas.
Very good. Okay. Any other
questions? I'm sorry, Madam Secretary. Mayor Bonin, did that insurance policy take effect before the last ransomware attack?
Yes.
Good timing.
I mean, that insurance took effect I believe about a year ago. About a year ago, we invested, but we purchased insurance, but we also invested in a pretty robust defensive system, which is what allowed us to flag the intrusion and then lock our system.
All right, very good. Congrats on that strategic investment there, Mayor. Any other questions on the cyber attack? Very good. All right. The city does have to. Christine.
I do have a quick follow-up question. One of the matters that has come up from time to time, Mayor, in our discussions around planning, around disaster planning, and I'm just wondering if the cybersecurity provisions or steps you've taken are part of that overall effort, or whether you consider that distinct. from the disaster?
No, I would say they are part of that. I will also say a lot of lessons learned from this incident, and I think that there's, we'll be doing an after-action review where we build a stronger plan should this occur again in the future.
Okay. I'm going to get off this call. I got stuff I forgot I got to do today. I got
if you are not on mute, please mute yourself. Not formally speaking. All right, we're going to move on to review and comment a couple of contracts for the State of Hartford. The first one is Dial-A-Ride, and followed thereafter are the community agency contract renewals for Hispanic Health Council, Community Renewal Team, Blue Hill Civic Association, Catholic Charities, and Salvation Army. Mayor, are you giving an overview of these contracts, or do you have one of your department heads?
No, I'm going to ask Leonie Arroyo, our Director of Health and Human Services, to present these.
Great. Good morning, Leonie. Welcome. All right, so we have Director Arroyo, who will give us a quick presentation.
Leonie, you might be muted.
Star 6 to unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. It kept muting and unmuting me. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Liania Arroyo. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Hartford, and these contracts are all from my department. I'll start one by one, starting with Dial-A-Ride. Dial-A-Ride is a service where we provide 5 days a week, 6 buses that are running for approximately 6.5 hours every day to bring seniors to our senior centers, medical appointments, as well as grocery shopping trips. About a third of our population in the City of Hartford does not have access to a vehicle. That number increases amongst our elderly population. So this particular service allows them for a small $25 donation a year to access these services. In the last year, the last fiscal year, we are missing some data for the last 2 months, but we do know that the numbers went down. We had over 49,000 rides, an average of about 4,500 rides a month. And then, so that's the basic data on there. This contract is funded by a variety of mechanisms, some grants, as well as the general fund. The largest portion comes from the general fund. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on this particular contract before I go into the next one.
Great. Any questions on the DASCO contract renewal? Director Arroyo, the fiscal 2021 contract cost of $731,000, is that flat, or does it represent an increase? And secondly, I do recall that the city in the past has restructured this contract for savings. You've looked at the number of routes, ridership, et cetera, and that's something you monitor on a regular basis?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Secretary. We do that. This actually is a slight decrease from the previous year. We have looked to work with DATCO. Last year we did provide them an hourly increase because it had been a little while since they had received an increase. But at this point, the contract amount remains overall slightly below. Hourly rate remains the same, but we did eliminate one bus. We were riding 7 buses. They were not all full. And so we consolidated some routes and were able to go down to 6 buses versus 7 buses. And we do expect that we may realize some savings as well, given the fact that our senior centers still remain closed. And so we're not running all the buses every day. Right now, buses are running to the grocery store and to doctor's appointments, and then we do have some buses helping with meal delivery to our homebound seniors.
Thank you. Other questions on DATCO? Okay. Next contract.
Great. The next contract is with the Community Renewal Team, CRT, for the operation of our men's shelter here in the city. Our men's shelter holds about 75 men, some of whom are disabled, some of whom have chronic health conditions, some of whom are veterans. They have been operating this particular operation, the McKinney Shelter, for us for a number of years already. This contract is funded by 2 sources, slightly over $500,000 from the Department of Housing, from the State Department of Housing, and then an additional $305,000 from our general fund. At the current time, they continue to provide services to a number of men, though not in the facility because of COVID. But they continue to provide all the services and are working to house our men that are in the shelter. Just trying to see, the shelter does operate 24 hours a day, Monday through Sunday. Provides all services on site, and then also does referrals to other community agencies.
Thank you. Any discussion? Next contract?
The next contract is the Hispanic Health Council to run our maternal and infant outreach program. This is a contract for $233,000, slightly over that. It is a contract that is focused on public health and ensuring that children, infants in the city of Hartford are born healthy and ready to lead good lives and ready to enter daycare and schools ready to learn. This contract has been with the Hispanic Health Council for over 20 years. It has been renewed since then because of the work that they do. We do work to monitor this contract with them. In the past year, because of COVID, the numbers did go slightly down in terms of number of individuals served, but they continue to serve those individuals with over 1,000 postpartum visits and over 270 prenatal visits. And so we put outcomes, and it's a good investment for the city in terms of ensuring that these children are born healthy with less issues that can then take root in the educational system. The contract is for $233,900, solely funded by the city's general fund.
Great. And if you're not talking, if you could kindly put your phone on mute, that would be great. Thank you very much, Director Arroyo. This number is very familiar. It sounds like it is a number that has not increased, correct?
Not at all.
Right. And just curious, why do we not rebid this on occasion since it's been with HHC for 20 years? Is that because they have a unique specialty?
So they do have a unique specialty. It had been rebid initially. It had been bid out initially. They were the only respondents to it. And so at this point, it has not been rebid. We do work with them. If we see any challenges and we do need to rebid it, we will certainly move towards that. But they do have a companion program that they also run. Our program primarily serves African American women in Hartford. Their program primarily serves Latina women. So they do have a unique specialty in this maternal and child health world.
Very good. Thank you. Other discussion? Okay, next contract.
The next contract is the Blue Hill Civic Association to run our North End Senior Center. This contract is for $257,525. This contract was rebid in the last fiscal year. Blue Hill Civic Association was the only bidder, and they did submit a solid response to the RFP. They have run this North End Senior Center for us for a number of years already. They provide a number of services there, including meals, which are now being delivered, but when they reopen, they'll provide meals on site. They provide home visits. They provide well checks to our seniors. They also provide aerobics and other services, as well as preventative health services on site. During the pandemic, they've been doing check-in calls, have been providing services online via Facebook to their seniors who are pretty well connected, and have continued to work with us to ensure the needs of our seniors during the pandemic are being met. This contract does represent a $25,000 increase. This increase was submitted and approved by the City Council. I will say it is a needed increase in the sense that this contract has not been increased for at least 5 to 7 years, according to my team here. And they were facing, they are just facing some challenges of trying to find people, and so they wanted to be proactive and have an opportunity to do that, and also to increase some of the services that they're providing as well. So that's where we're at with this contract.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Director Arroyo?
Okay, next contract is Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities runs our South End Senior Center, and the amount of that contract is for $260,612. This also represents a $25,000 increase from last fiscal year. The increase was directed and approved by the City Council. They very much face some of the similar challenges. They had not had an increase in a number of years, This particular senior center also has really 2 individuals that are eligible for retirement, and the salaries that they pay are not very competitive, and so this increase will help assure them of being able to find someone, and then also continue to expand their services. They've continued to do much of the same work that the North End Senior Center has done, including doing home visits, doing well check visits, providing information to us as needed about connecting seniors to services, and providing fitness events and things of that nature online. Both the North End and South End will be working to do some small in-person events with some of their increased funding as well. But again, it's a $25,000 increase from last fiscal year.
Thank you, Director Arroyo. Any discussion from the MARB members? Okay, finally, Salvation Army contract renewal.
So Salvation Army has been providing the service, which is our overflow shelter. This overflow shelter is for single women and families. It primarily serves families, but also does serve some single women. It's a much underserved demographic in the homeless population. They've had this contract as well for a number of years. It was rebid previously. It's a contract. It's a short-term contract for only 4 months of the year, or 5 months of the year, sorry. And the beginning month and the last month allow them just to do some finalization of the budget and wrapping things up. But they serve usually about 60 unique individuals in this program during the winter months. Again, it's a program only for the winter. It's meant to increase the capacity that exists in the shelter system during the cold weather so that we can keep families safe and healthy until we can get them into better circumstances and permanent housing. And this is only a $100,000 contract, solely funded by the city, but they do receive a matching grant, I believe, from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, which provides the other amount of funding that they need to make this shelter operational.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on the Salvation Army contract renewal? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mayor, Director Arroyo. Good to hear from you, Bob, and the team. I think that concludes all of our items for the City of Hartford.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.
Thank you.
Very good. So we will we'll begin with our agenda for the town of Sprague. And Julian, just remind us who we have here present from the town of Sprague.
I don't have recorded who has jumped on from Sprague yet, so maybe they could ring in and let us know. Is the first selectman on the line?
Julian Cheryl Blanchard, the first selectman, is here. Melissa is here as well, and Michelle D'Amico is on the line as well.
Thank you.
Great. Good morning. So our first item for the town of Sprague is a subcommittee update. You do have a written update in the meeting materials. Julian, would you like to touch upon the highlights?
Yes. The last time the subcommittee met was in late June. That was around the time that that was actually when the MARB met and approved the town's budget. The subcommittee has not met since then. The budget approval, as part of that discussion, involved the update to the town's 5-year plan, and it was acknowledged that the update to the plan was still a work in progress and required more vetting at the local level with the Board of Finance and the Board of Education. And so that has been one of the tasks that the town has been working on over the course of the summer, and will be coming back to the subcommittee with an updated plan that will hopefully have more accelerated growth in the fund balance, and will also have been vetted by the local bodies at that point. And then the other primary task, at least as it relates to MARB matters, has been the preparation of the general obligation bond issue. This is also a discussion or review item on the agenda. As a Tier 2 town, it doesn't require any action by the MARB or review by the MARB, but it has been on the radar screen for a while. The town has had over $3 million in notes that it's been rolling over periodically with the intent of permanently financing. They were waiting for some stabilization to their finances. In the agreement with the MARB and OPM for restructuring funds did provide some stabilization there, and they felt it was time to go out and finance those bands, and also issued some new money. We can talk a little bit more about that on the next agenda item, but that has been their other one of their other major efforts over the summer. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, Julian. Is there any discussion or questions on the Sprague Subcommittee update? I'm pleased to see that the rating was maintained by Moody's with a stable outlook. Other comments or questions from MARB members? Okay, very good. The city is going to provide us with an update on their 5-year plan status, so I will turn it over to the first selectwoman to provide us with a verbal update.
Okay, good morning. Yes, we are continuing to work with the Board of Education on updating the 5-year plan, and now the bond issue is actually closing today, so now that we will have the concrete numbers, we will be able to add those numbers in to be able to come up with more correct numbers. The 5-year plan has not yet been vetted out by the other local boards because we haven't reached a more final of a product that we feel we're ready to bring forward to them yet.
Very good. And do you have an estimated timeline with respect to when the MARB would be receiving an updated 5-year plan?
Hopefully we would be able to get that in October.
Okay. Very good. So, Julian, you'll do some follow-up to see if we can get that scheduled in time for a subcommittee before it comes to the full MARB.
Yes.
Very good. Questions or discussion on the 5-year plan status? Great. Next, we have an update on the GO bond issue. And First Selection, you had started to touch on this particular item. Would you like to provide a detailed update on the GO bond issue, other than Julian's summary and any other further comments you might have?
Julian's summary was pretty thorough, and the issue went very well and is closing today. As a matter of fact, we've been back and forth with the closing items and the funds coming through today. We're happy to be able to do the long-term financing on the bands that have been being rolled over for quite a few years now, so that we've got them into a stable repayment schedule.
Very good. Go right ahead, First Selectman.
I was just going to say that the bonds were issued at a premium, and we were able to capitalize $231,000 for future interest payments, which will help us a lot through our budgetary process.
Great. Other questions on the GO bond issue that will close today? And I understand that the bond issue is funding school, general purpose, and sewer related projects. Do you have any major school projects going on in Sprague, or are these prior projects?
The only new one is a roof project, which is partially being funded by a grant, and then the remainder is being funded by the town.
Very good. And seeing no other questions, we'll move on to a review and discussion of the monthly financial reports for closing out June 30th, 2020, and a first look at July 2020 for fiscal year 2021. I will ask the city to give us an overview of their projections.
Well, as you can see by the report, we are projecting a surplus of roughly $760,000, but that does include the $500,000 of restructuring funds that were received. Part of that is due to the COVID-19. There were some labor issues that didn't, people that were not at work, or things that were not done. So that actually contributed to that. So it would be a one-time surplus.
First, I'm looking here at your Board of Finance budget to actual with year-end estimated totals July 2019 through June 2021, and I can see a budget of 9.4 and the year-end estimated expenditures of 9.1. That's the $271,000 surplus, correct?
Yes.
Did you say 700,000 or 270,000?
I said 700,000, but that was including the 500,000 in restructuring funds. So in the total figuring of the surplus, that will come in because that was unbudgeted funding.
Very good. So it's 270 on the expense side, and then you're indicating that the $500,000 of muni restructuring was not needed.
No, it was needed, but it wasn't budgeted, so it's just going to show as it was needed. But so the actual surplus would be the 271.
Kim or Julian, do you want to jump in here to give greater clarity?
Yes. So the restructuring funds will run through as a revenue, an unbudgeted revenue. They will fall into fund balance and help to reduce the negative fund balance from the prior year, which I don't have it open in front of me right now, but my recollection is that it was minus 870,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. That the result of the projected surplus for this year, which will be aided by that $500,000 in restructuring funds, will land somewhere around negative 100,000. So they will have eliminated a considerable portion of that deficit in fund balance. And again, I don't have it right in front of me, unfortunately. I did look back and see how these projections compared back to the projections we were looking at in the May and June time frame when the update to the 5-year plan was being assembled. And it looked, again, these are preliminary numbers, but it looked as though there was a slight improvement in the projected surplus for the year, somewhere around $50,000 to $60,000 better than previously projected.
Yes.
Thank you, Julian. So this is really 270,000 more favorable than our original plan, if you will, given we knew the 500K would go to help correct the negative balance. How about
Correct.
the Board? Thank you. The Board of Education fiscal 20 report, is that included in your 270K? I see that they're going to last.
Included.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. All right, other discussion on fiscal 2020 for Craig. update on fiscal 2021 for the first month of the year. First selection.
We've gotten started. We're a little bit behind on tax collections from what year over year we were last year. Although for August, the numbers are higher than they were last year. So we anticipate that September is also going to be higher and put us more in the ballpark of where we expect it to be normally at the end of July. And expenditures, there's nothing at this point out of line.
Questions from the MARB? Can you remind me, under the Sprague program that you selected, the deferral program, what were the terms of the deferral? Taxes?
The taxes need to be paid prior to October 1st, or they will incur interest all the way back until July 1st.
Very good. So we, at this point, we're in monitoring mode, and would like to hope that you catch up, if you will, by the time October hits. Okay. Very good. Other discussion on fiscal 2021? Okay. If there are no questions or further discussion, then that concludes all of our agenda items for Sprague. Thank you very much for joining us today.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to take us off.
Thank you. Have a great day.
I'm going to take us off.
You too.
Very good. So we'll move on to the...
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press *6. You are no longer muted.
So I know we had Mr. Chaplinsky and Mayor Rossi on.
Yes, we are here.
Yes, I'm here too.
We are here. We were just trying to unmute the phone.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. Okay. Well, why don't we begin with the City of West Haven update? There's a written update in the materials. Julian will give us the highlights.
You'll see that the subcommittee last met in mid-July. There are a number of recurring agenda items that the subcommittee takes up monthly or as often as they meet, on the corrective action plan, the implementation of the human resources action plan, and then there were a handful of other items that were part of that agenda. We did get a briefing on the planned bond issue, which is included on this meeting's agenda as well, that permanently finances part of the high school renovation project. It also rolls forward some notes for the high school project and also provides some new money for a variety of public works projects and fleet purchases. We did do one run-through of some conditions for restructuring funds for FY21 to get some feedback from the subcommittee. The list is under consideration internally, and we would be bringing that back to the full MARB for the full board's feedback soon. And then we also received a briefing from Representative DeMassa, who will also locally provide support to the City Council on the proposed revisions to the city charter that are scheduled to be on the referendum during the November general election. And you'll see in the written update some of the highlights from that, from the Charter Revision Commission's report, which was approved by the City Council. There are some pretty significant changes to the charter envisioned there. Transition to a council manager form of government, so that would contemplate hiring a city manager. the terms of elected officials being modified from 2 years to 4 years, restructuring of the district structure in the city, and some of the at-large representation on the city council, and then some changes to 3 currently elected positions, potentially making them appointed positions, and I believe also incorporating some credentials into the charter for the tax collector, city clerk, and treasurer. It was a very comprehensive report that the commission produced, and so these are pretty significant changes to the city. And then I'll 2 other things I'll mention that were not in the written report. We did meet by a special meeting, and the full MARB also met at a special meeting, so it's not news to the full board, on the 13th of August to review the firefighters contract. That was rejected, and that may be coming back at some point. But we've also recently received from the HR department a notification that there's a TA tentative agreement on the Local 681, the Public Works contract. So we, at the September subcommittee meeting, I would expect it to be on the agenda for that meeting, followed by MARB consideration at the full MARB meeting October. That all falls within the 44-day timeline that the statute provides for. And that concludes my update.
Any questions or discussion on the subcommittee update? Very good. We have a very quiet MARB today, which is uncommon. Sending everyone for COVID testing. Okay, seeing that there are no questions, I'm going to have to go around. You're going to have your location so we can do temperature checks. I'm getting concerned. Otherwise, I think we need to see each other face to face. That's what that is saying. Okay. Julian, that was a great detailed update. Thank you. West Haven Mayor or Frank, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, not to the subcommittee report.
Nothing from me either. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and move on to review and discussion of the GO bond issue, because we know the city's planning for the GO bond issue in late September. Just a reminder to the MARB, we are not required to take any action pertaining to bond issuances. The statute just provides the MARB with an opportunity to review and comment. So I don't want Mr. Saplinski to be too quiet today, so I'm going to ask the city to hit some of the highlights, anything that Julian has not already touched upon, and we'll have an opportunity to review and comment.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. The bond issue, we are scheduled, if everything goes according to plan, to close on October 2nd. We had the reviews last week with the rating agency, both Moody's and Standard & Poor. The comments that we got were extremely favorable. Both rating agencies are pleased with the progress that the city has made regarding its finances. And thank you to the MARB for their continued assistance and support around that. So we are expecting tomorrow to see the official reports from the rating agencies. We don't expect any movement this time around, and I think that's, from the comments that they made, that is consistent with what we would be seeing with all the towns, given the COVID environment. They're reluctant to make any changes, not knowing where things are going to land. But overall, very favorable. We had the due diligence call Tuesday.
Yeah, it seems like a long time.
The days are starting to blur. And that went very well as well. So confident that the closing will happen on October 2nd. As Julian did mention, the majority of this bond is a third of the high school project. So $13 million is being included in this as permanent funding. The remainder of it, we have gone through a fairly extensive capital review and needs review during the budget process. And, Public Works had not replaced a tremendous amount of their equipment in years. So we literally have equipment that's falling apart. So quite a few pieces of heavy equipment are going to be replaced, police vehicles, a lot of IT infrastructure, and that was scheduled to be updated, as well as the ERS dispatch computers. And I believe in your package you do have a list of all the projects. The current estimate is that the overall cost to fiscal '21 would come in roughly $390,000 favorable to what was put into the budget, given the current interest rates and conditions. So very pleased about that. So with that, Madam Secretary, I'll be willing to answer any questions from the MARB.
Thank you, Frank. Great news on the $390K of favorability. Can you remind us of the total project cost for the high school?
Yes, the total project cost is expected to be $39 million for the city share, $133 million in total.
Got it. And when you are planning for the city share, what is your reimbursement rate for school construction?
Currently, it's coming through at, I want to say, 67%. There's a holdback. There's a holdback until the final audit is done.
For the 11%.
Okay.
The 11% holdback.
When you estimate the city's share, do you leave yourself some flexibility for ineligibles that arise?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
We've put a process in place when I started to do monthly reviews of all the costs that are coming through. Because we had seen delays in what had been sent to the state, delays in receiving funds because things were ineligible. So we've got a process in place that's been running very smoothly now for the past year.
Great. So you have a plan and you have some contingency in here for items that are deemed ineligible, so you're still prepared for a potentially higher city contribution.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Discussion on the bond issue. Okay, very good. We look forward to seeing your updated rating agency report.
Yes, I do as well.
Me too. I do.
Someone chiming in there?
No, we were just saying that we look forward to the rating report as well.
Yes.
Very good. It's good to see, the report card. You want the report card to send the right message. So, all right. So, Frank, while we have you up, why don't you just take us through the fiscal 2020 financial report, and then we'll go right on into fiscal 21.
Sure. So right now, obviously the books are still fluid. We are projecting a $1.6 million, I guess the number I gave you, $1.6 million favorability. That is inclusive of the restructuring funds, which have not been received yet, but that is included in the forecast. We are seeing favorability primarily through the healthcare line, which we expected, having moved to the partnership plan mid-year, as well as some favorability in heart and hypertension. One note, though, is that we still have not received the IBNR data on from either Anthem or from PMA. So these numbers include a hedge from myself, and hopefully we won't exceed that. We are also reporting a $300,000 favorability from the Board of Education. They have committed to me to $324,000 in total. So that was good news there. So again, overall, we're expecting to end the year with a $1.6 million surplus in the general fund. In the sewer fund, we are expecting a surplus there as well. The number from the sewer fund, excuse me for 1 second, is expected to be also $1.6 million. That will go towards the continued buildup of the sewer fund balance. We continue to build that fund because anyone who understands or has been involved with the WPCA or the sewer department, those projects, when needed, could be quite expensive. So we continue to build that fund up so we have a rainy day fund in case anything happens with the plant or the pipes and piping system. Finally, Allentown, we're expecting to end the year with a $694,000 surplus, which is good news from Allentown. Part of that was favorability to the pension contribution. As you recall, we built the plan with an estimate. The final ADEC from the actuary came in much lower than that, so we were able to roll that favorability through. And they did have some savings on both personnel and on the health insurance line as well. So that is fiscal 20. I don't know if there are any questions.
Great. Any questions for Frank on fiscal 20?
And just as a reminder, Madam Secretary, we would still need some sort of a letter that I can use as backup to book a receivable for the restructuring funds that would be coming towards the city.
Great. We will work with you offline, and Julian requesting a status update on the measures that the city was supposed to complete in order to release funds. We should do an update at the next meeting on that particular topic. Frank will connect with you offline. Certainly.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Excellent.
2000.
Before you move on, Frank, I just want to make sure that the MARB members didn't have any questions on fiscal 2020 before you go to 21.
Apologies.
Not so. Moving on to 21, sir.
So, as you can see from the narrative that was provided, revenues were down in July for taxation, tax collection year over year. Part of that, or a good part of that, is because the final day to pay the taxes, we opted not to defer. We opted for the low interest. So the final day to actually pay the taxes before incurring a penalty was August 3rd. So we did see an $8 million shortfall in July. Tax reports that I have gotten from the tax collector indicate that August was substantially heavier than last year. So I'm expecting next month, when I provide the August year-to-date report, we will be back in line with tax collections.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, on the revenue side, we haven't seen anything yet. I mean, it's only been 1 month, but nothing's jumped out at me yet. I would not intend to make any changes to the year-end projection until after I see the first quarter results. However, I do reserve the right, as if anything does come up, I will certainly include that in the report and make the committee know, make the MARB know of anything that does come up. As part of the Allentown budget this year, there was an additional $650,000 of contribution towards the pension plan. That was a result of funding received or acquired by Representative DeMassa. That money has been received, and I'm very pleased to say that that contribution has already been made. So well on our way to taking care of Allingtown's ADEC and pension contributions as well. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that I did receive a resignation from the city's IT director. He will be leaving on the 22nd. I believe, and this is my personal opinion and not the opinion of any others, I think it's a result of the council's interference with the day-to-day operations. He did not feel comfortable given some of the things that were done with his budget and said during the meetings. So after being approached by several other towns, he did finally accept an offer. So we are in the process of trying to put in a stopgap anyway until we can get an IT director, because I need somebody in-house. I think having a city this size without an in-house IT person here on site is not feasible. But again, just my opinion. So we are moving forward with that. I did want to make sure that the MARB was aware of that. I know that cybersecurity is a concern for all of us these days. So we are moving forward with that. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer questions on fiscal 21.
Questions, discussion? Thank you for flagging the IT situation, Frank, and obviously with cybersecurity being top of mind, that's important, as well as I think the MARB has had a strong voice in making sure you have the critical positions to ensure the city's success. So certainly support the recruitment there. Other discussion?
Madam Secretary, this is Mark.
Mark?
You may not, Frank, you may not be able to answer this because it's a school board question, but I recall the school board or somebody saying that Siegel was doing another comparison of insurance costs for the partnership plan and the existing plan based on the data that was provided to you guys and MARB and the projections. And if the Siegel comparison or report is not ready by now, it's possible that you could call over there, and if it is ready, we could have it at the, well, obviously for a subcommittee meeting, but also for the MARB meeting, just to, see if they should pursue the partnership. That's been an ongoing discussion on the board side that personally I'd like to see put to rest one way or the other.
Certainly, sir. I have not heard of a completed report yet. I did hear that they were requesting another report from Siegel. I will follow up with the Board of Education for you and let them know that you're looking for a report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions, discussions, or requests for West Haven? Okay. Well, we are not only back on track, but we are ahead of time. So we have plenty of time for other business. Do I hear someone jumping in there?
Yes, Secretary Kim Kennison here. I wanted to allow the MARB members to be able to speak prior to myself, if you don't mind.
Sure, go right ahead, Kim.
So I would like to circle back about the IT vacancy, and knowing that this has been an ongoing struggle for the city of West Haven with back and forth right through the budget when the budget design was going forward. One of the items that I would recommend that I think would be very helpful for the city is if we could get a IT report. I know that there has been one in the past. However, it was a different type of report, and so that has not been shared publicly with the MARB. But something that could be shared publicly would be, my recommendation would be for the city to hire Bloom Shapiro in their annual audit to do an audit of their IT infrastructure. They have standard protocol that they do. And that would be my suggestion. And I started to have conversations with Frank about this, as well as the mayor.
Absolutely. We think that's a great idea, and especially given the situation, I think that's a perfect suggestion.
That's great. So we should make that happen. And just looking for clarification from the city on whether or not you have cybersecurity insurance. I recall West Haven might have had an incident a year or more ago.
Yes.
Looking for an update on it.
Yes, we did. We had a breach October of 2018. We do currently have cyber insurance in case anything happens again. And you know, it's really a shame to be losing Dave because he has become the go-to person when you know the SCROG or anyone else needs someone to talk about cybersecurity and what to do when the breach happens. And so, you know, we're really losing a talent there with him.
And I just want to chime in here. I want to concur with everything Frank has said about our IT person, our IT manager. He did a fabulous job. He, you know, just getting us up and running with WebEx meetings quickly. We didn't miss a beat. We were able to present our budget and do what we needed to do. And it is a shame because a few council members had made it clear that they were looking to outsource that position, and also would removed. I had put in a staff member, because right now Dave is the IT department manager, but he is the IT department, and I had put in a staff member, and they had quickly cut that staff member in their deliberations and was pushing for an RFP to go out for doing, you know, subcontracting everything out, which doesn't leave us usually somebody on site during the day, or if we have problems with evening or IT issues. So again, it's going to be a loss to the city of West Haven because Dave has been here for several years and has worked well with all departments and has always been there and done an excellent job for us.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor. Other discussion?
This is Christine Shaw. I just want to offer my support for the audit that Kim Kennison described. If there's a formal vote, I think you have I don't think one is necessary, but I do have to jump off the call. So do you need a vote on that or no?
I don't think we need a vote on it. I think our discussion in the minutes reflects the MARB support. And
Okay.
Thank you for just going on record, Christine. That's helpful. And Mayor Rossi, if you find that having challenges at the local level and you need something from the board, you know, a vote of support or to indicate direction, please just let us know.
Thank you for that.
Obviously, I know some of the kind of efficiency measures that Frank, you've been working on, and making sure we're using our systems effectively so that you know, we can get the business done in the most efficient manner, et cetera, would be impacted by losing that skill set. So it does relate to other items that the MARB has had some jurisdiction or involvement in, and so we want to ensure you're moving in the right direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Is there any other business, anything that any MARB member would like to raise for today or for discussion at a later time? Okay. Sounds like we do not. I don't know. Sal, I believe, is in attendance. He is correct. We need a motion to adjourn. It needs to be seconded, and we need to vote. So,
motion to adjourn. Sal Luciano, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Sal.
Second.
Christine Shaw has seconded, and therefore we're going to have Julian do the honors. Thank you.
Mr. White.
Aye.
Mr. Waxenberg. You might have gotten off the call. Mr. Biller?
Mark,
Thank you. Mr. Luciano?
this is Mark. Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Sal Luciano.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Felsigno, Mr. Brockman,
Aye.
Ms. Shaw, I think she had to jump off.
Aye.
Aye.
No, I stayed for this. Have a good one, all.
Secretary McCaw.
Hi, thank you very much, Christine. All right. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great day. Look forward to the next time we connect.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.